but we're in Rehan Alawa's world of connections right now. And this is Carla. And I am here to speak with Asifa Baig about the law of attraction and Napoleon Hill, and to gain some extra knowledge about what all this is about. I am so excited to speak with her. And as you know, I am Carla from Rehan Alawala's World of Connections. And this show, like all of my shows, is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an organization online promoting peace, one conversation at a time. Asifa, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Carla.
We may have another interviewer with us today.
Well, what a pleasure to meet you. And I have to say thank you to Rehan for introducing us just very recently, right? So I guess, when I always say when we do the right things, the right people come together. So definitely some great energy happening here with you. So I'm a chartered accountant. I'm in Toronto. I'm originally from Pakistan. I've been here, though, in Canada ever since I was like very young, 9 years old. But I have, as much as I love this incredible country I live in, which is Canada, I also have a very still sort of deep, connection with Pakistan, and definitely seeing, whatever we can do in terms of, I think we take for granted a lot of the things that we have here in Canada and, where you are, I think US, right? So definitely lots we can do to support that incredible country, which is doing incredible things. So I'm, like I said, chartered accountant. I work with the provincial government here in Ontario for about 16 years. And then, decided, which was, I don't say it was a leap of faith, Carla. I say I truly walked into my faith, which is, leaving a really, really great career. I decided to start my practice from scratch, from scratch. So now it's been about 3.5 years, and never look back, because my passion is entrepreneurship. It's business development, it's global trade, but I believe at the core of it is who we are impacts everything that we do. And that's where some of these other things, the law of attraction, and we'll talk a little bit about Napoleon Hill, I guess, comes in. Yeah, so that's me, I guess, in a nutshell.
Wonderful. You're an accountant, and typically an accountant is just getting the numbers together and decided the taxes. But you're also interested in the law of attraction, and one wouldn't believe that the two would go together, but really business and spirituality do fit together. How did you find the law of attraction?
So, Carla, it's interesting. For most of my life, people have been saying, "You're an accountant, really?" Because I guess I have a bit of a personality, perhaps, that goes apart from counting beans. I have a bit of a, personality. But I really think for me, it started. I know, when what we do for our living, or what we do as, in terms of our careers. They take, I'll give you a little bit. I actually got married at a very, very young age. I had only done high school and got married. Then, spent 10 years having my 3 wonderful kids. And then it was after that I actually decided to go back to university, because, our financial situation just wasn't great. But I think, up until then, like, I had been kind of, it's been a good life. Parents provided everything we needed. But like most of us, I think we're just existing, right? We're going through life just, living it without really becoming aware of, who we are as individuals. There's a phrase called metacognition. It's about, thinking about thinking, right? So I've been living my life, just living my life. And then what happened is when I went back, I decided to go back to university. Um, it was a number of years before that, actually. When I was even younger, I read this book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, if you know about Dale Carnegie's book. And because I was so young at that time, I really didn't remember much from it or understand it, but I did remember one thing, and that was, you know what, be happy and positive and smile. It doesn't cost you anything and it's infectious. So that was one thing that had stuck with me. And I remember it was kind of how I lived my life, you know, just because it's the right thing to do. Being miserable doesn't help, right? So that, and when I started back to university, you can imagine with three little kids going back to university, a very tough program with being a chartered accountant. What I used to do was I would stop, like on the way to university, there would be these homes that were being built, these mega really nice homes, because my university was in a very nice area. And I would literally like stop and walk through those homes because, when I first started, it was like, when you see that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, like it's like there wasn't even a tunnel yet, so it was quite like it took everything sort of in me to, just kind of believe that there was something good up ahead. Like, going back to universities, 4 years is a long process, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, right. So I would stop and look through those homes and just, kind of get myself motivated. So, later in a few years later, once I actually started working, something happened at work. It was quite, had the potential to be quite disastrous. Let's just put it that way. And, I had just met my friend over like the weekend at a birthday party, and she had been talking about, hey, have you seen that movie, The Secret? And I was like, no, I haven't. She told me a little bit about it. And, so I called her that night when something happened at work. And I said to her, I said, what was that you were talking about? Because I need something, like something's happened at work and I need something. I need to figure it out. And she's like, it was midnight. She's like, well, I have this DVD. You can come pick it up. Right. So I literally went at midnight and, I picked up these CDs when it had first come out. And I literally stood there, sat there all night watching it again and again. And it still didn't occur to me like exactly what it was. But when I kind of said, oh my God, this is how I've been living my life. And I didn't know that this was a thing. It didn't, how when you're kind of doing things, not, it's almost like doing something because you're just doing it, or doing it because you actually know the process and the science and something behind it, the confidence that you get. And, that, wow, I can proactively work at something like this. So that's sort of when I got introduced to it as a concept, as a thing, like probably like a lot of other people. But and all I can say is like over the next sort of 2-3 days, I didn't know what I was doing still. Okay. I still didn't know what I was doing, like, because it was fairly new to me. But over the next 2-3 days, what happened, the way things transpired at work and the way everything got worked out, it was like, I knew there had to be, and worked out for the better, worked out for the good, worked out for the thing. I couldn't say that it was because of, me watching this and, whatever, because at that time I didn't really know what I was doing or what I needed to, totally do. But all I know is what happened over the next few days. It was like there was something bigger at work, the way things worked out. So that's where kind of, it started for me. But then the journey started, this journey of what is this thing? And, since then, a lot of people will say, and actually, if you go back and listen to The Secret again, after this sort of evolution of mine over the last probably 10 years now, I go back and listen to it. It makes a lot more sense. And it, a lot more I can absorb because now I know so much more along this spectrum, because there's actual science behind it. It isn't just, when part of the issue with The Secret was, kind of sounded a little bit hokey. A lot of people who would listen to it, either would walk away thinking maybe it's just about money, or maybe it's just, like I said, just sounds a little hokey the way it was. But the further I started kind of, my curiosity just went crazy. And the more and more I found, as they would say, the teachers, started listening to more and more people. And it would be like, I'd listen to one for a while, and then I would kind of like, I'm done with this. I'd look, something else would come up and something else would come up. And I really believe my understanding now is, it's not like it's from listening to one thing. It's probably listening to many different people with very different perspectives, right down to where one thing I had listened to was an interview with Brian Tracy and Darren Hardy, because we're talking about business, right? We're talking about business, like me being an accountant. Well, there was something very specific that they mentioned in the conversation that was like a clinching point, where they talked about something called the RAS system in our brain, the reticular activating system. And when I heard that, it was kind of like, so there were so many pieces that brought things together for me. And I really believe that whenever there is anything, because, before we've sort of grown up with sort of the science as we know it, like the physical laws. Right now, the quantum physics comes in, and it's talking about energy. Well, just like anything else, energy could be used for the good. Any energy could be used for the bad. And my goal is really, I love business, I love entrepreneurship, but I believe how we have the world we have created, it's, we're kind of at a point in time where, whether it's with respect to the environment, the financial systems, the level of human conflict around the world, we're at a breaking point. It's not sustainable anymore. Something different needs to happen. And for the most part, that needs to start, business needs to start incorporating some of these things. And that's, I let you, kind of, I'm sure we'll have many more discussions over this over the next few minutes, but so that's kind of where it started for me. And I really believe that decisions taken in the boardroom, it's really bringing science and spirituality together. We thought boardroom decisions were based on facts only, but now that we know, as human beings made up of like 53 trillion cells, our cells are activated by our environment. We're not just determined by our genes. Well, then what is that environment in the business world? What are we doing? What are the decisions we're making where we can actually have an impact? Because if we set out to fix what we've done just on a purely, process function basis, it's a lot of work to do. We need to tap into a higher power. And I believe that's where, all this is leading.
Did you, when you first started, did that seem to be the case? Or was it more or less magic kind of making itself to you and you wanted it to grow?
You mean the sort of the, I guess, importance of law of attraction in my life, right? I think if I would put it in a way, when we've heard this, they say we use probably less than, a few percentages of our brain capacity, right? Of our abilities. That I believe, like, in pushing the boundaries of human potential, what are we capable of? When they talk about the 4-minute mile, the first time, nobody thought it could be done, right? But when it was first done, after that, many people started doing it. The first time you go to the moon, it's not possible. Once you do it now, we're going to other planets. So, those boundaries are, for the most part, self-created. And it is by expanding our, I would say, our, perspective, and then starting to believe in sort of a higher, what is this? We think, I think we think this is air in front of us, right? It isn't air. It's a vibratory, living, breathing field. They call it the quantum field, infinite intelligence. There's so many names for it. But, now that there's very great science that says we can actually mold this field. We can actually, what they say, what the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Well, there's actual science behind all of that in terms of how it works. So the more I started getting into, I'll be honest with you, I call them my digital mentors. I have not met Dr. Joe Dispenza or Dr. Greg Braden or Dr. Bruce Lipton. There's a number of these and so many more. Abraham Hicks, right? So, and it's funny because the doctors bring in a different perspective, but so much of what Abraham Hicks was saying, when I heard the science, I'm like, oh my God, that's what she's talking about. When I heard the science, so it's the beauty is bringing all of these things together. You get different perspectives. And to me now, I am just like, in my own life, I believe, I mentioned to you at the beginning that I'm not that young, but I really feel like my life is just starting. It's like I have huge, goals in terms of, it's not just about business, but it's about making an impact. And how do we go from doing business as usual to going to, a world where everybody can live in peace and dignity, right? But the issue is, so the issue becomes that, it's great. We can't, but the thing is, we can't just tell people to sit and meditate and, everything will get worked out, be positive. Because reality is we live in a capitalistic society where there's ownership of things, right? So the super elite, like I can't just sell them, oh, don't worry, we're going to be okay. Like you're going to be okay. Like, how do we have that transition to this new world, where we don't have to worry about taking from each other to survive. It's not about, Darwin's theory of survival is the fittest is, there's a lot of things about it that's been kind of like, this is not how it is, that's about conflict and, competition, whereas the universal, God's laws are based on compassion, abundance, right? So we've got something wrong. So, and people, I'll just, quickly say this, people like the Dr. Joe Dispenzas, the Dr. Greg Bradens, and Bruce Lipton, specifically, these three have been to the United Nations, because the United Nations has called them and said, look, we're doing all of this, but why aren't things working? Why are we not making progress? And I really believe that, I hope that my contribution, being the financial person, okay, being the bean counter, as some like to say, is like, how do we move our financial models along so we can get to this new world? Because if we don't figure that out, it's not going to happen. They're not going to give up their oil patches. They're not going to give up their thing unless we can demonstrate, listen, there is a new world possible where you can still have more. You want more, you just think bigger. Think bigger, and we'll talk about how thinking big and all that will get us what we want. But yeah, I think it's definitely been an evolution, and after that it's just like crazy curiosity and wanting to have an impact, a little bit of insanity, I think.
But is it actually insane, or do we actually, in reality, create our world? We can create it as poor, or we can create it as abundant.
Well, so if you're right, we hear those things, right? But now, what, this is the first time I'm literally going to spell this out like this, but how do we create that? What's the science behind it, right? Like, how do we, it's easy to say, well, we can create the world. So what the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve, right? But how's that happening? So they say, in our frontal lobe, like, our brain, like the reason they tell us to have this clear vision, right? We've heard you've got to have a clear vision, right? So what happens is, once we create that vision, once we conceive that vision in our mind, they say this, and, the quantum field, there, an actual hologram, a reflection of our vision gets created in this field. So that's why they say everything that we want already is. I'll just tell you, I'm not a scientist, okay? I'm not, but I believe we're so fortunate because with the digital world, we have access to information where we can, sort of anybody looking for information can find it. So what they say is, that our frontal lobe, once we have that vision, a reflection of what we want gets created in this, holographic, the quantum field. Now, and so what they say is that if, the reason we want whatever we want, now that vision could be your best job, it could be your house, it could be money, it could be a relationship, it could be anything, right? But they say the reason that we want all these things is not because of their material value, but how we believe we will feel when we have them. Okay. So if, Carla just asked, right? Like, let's make this a little bit interactive. Let's say, when you create that vision of whatever it is you want, you could do it now, right? When you have that, what would you feel like?
Absolutely amazing.
Right. So what is that feeling? That amazing feeling, first of all, they say that amazing feeling, we don't actually have to have that thing in our hand to know that feeling, because there will be other moments in your life when you would have had that amazing feeling. When, I don't know about you, but for me, when I look at my kids and my grandkids, really, it just fills me up, right? At that time, nothing else matters. And, or like I'll step out, and if it's a beautiful day, for a second, you just take it in and you're kind of like, oh my God. And just to be aware of our breath and to know that we are alive. So to know that feeling is really, like you said, amazing, or it's like of joy, right? It's like relief, and it's like ease and peace, right? So they say the vibration, the vibration of everything that we want, because the law of attraction is a physical law, right? It's like gravity, light, and sound. Its purpose is to bring like things together, right? And how it recognizes what is alike is by its vibrational frequency, right? So they say the frequency, the vibrational frequency of everything that we want is that feeling that you just talked about, right? That amazing feeling. And, we always say, well, you know what? I'll be happy when I have that, right? But it doesn't work like that. It's like, be happy now and you will have it. Because you see, when we match our now frequency, like, to match that frequency of everything that we want, the law of attraction goes to work and brings those like frequencies together. So how do we manifest like what we have created in our mind, and that holograph has been created, holograph? How do we manifest it into being? It's really about matching the frequency, and the frequency of everything we want is that joy, peace, gratitude, relief, right? And here's something else that's really interesting quickly. Napoleon Hill says we're all born with two envelopes, right? We're all kind of born with two envelopes. One is peace, joy, love, gratitude, and all of those good feelings that just make you feel whole, right? And the other is, and which is really the vibration and the frequency of everything that we want. It matches that, right? But the other envelope has all those negatives, which are the, greed, anger, jealousy, hopelessness, despair, all of those, negative energies. And when we start letting any of that enter our, I would just say our field, enter our realm, it is going to mess up this frequency, right? It's going to mess up this frequency. So it's going to slow down everything that is coming to us, because this frequency can no longer match the frequency of everything that we want. So in just practical terms, this is why we've always known it's not good to be angry. It's not good to be jealous. It's not good to be, right? Because now we know the science behind it is The law of attraction draws like frequencies together. How it recognizes what to bring together is by the vibrational tone of the frequencies, you know, and when we're in that zone of where, and what that really comes down to is the only way we can feel like that really is, the only way we can feel that we actually have in our hands what we desire most before we have it is when, for me, it was understanding the science behind it. I said, wait a sec, gravity doesn't discriminate. All of these light, sound, all of this discriminate. These are physical laws. And if the law of attraction is a physical law like these other laws, then what if this is true? And what if this is true? And I choose to believe it is because it's God's laws, and believing in God's perfection and the perfection of his laws. When we can, the only way we can be in that state now is when we go from hope, faith, and belief to a knowing that the laws are going to work with perfection. And then the magic will happen, and it doesn't mean to say we don't doubt. Doubt creeps in, but when we know the science, we know that we can't let it linger. We know that it cannot stay, or we cannot have what we desire most because the frequency will no longer match. That's a quick science, quick thing behind.
Well, if that's true, how do we change our mindset so we know that? Without a doubt.
For
And I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just
absolutely. No, absolutely. So we seek knowledge, right? We listen. I don't know all of this, like, just from sitting in my corner office here or whatever. It was, like I said, this insatiable curiosity to want to know more. And the beautiful thing, as bad as this is, everybody says, well, wait a second, I didn't even say that word yet, I was just thinking it, and things start showing up on my phone, right? So the great thing about some of these things is, like, when you're listening to some of these, YouTube, YouTube is our best, as bad, as distraction as it is. Everything can be used for good or bad. There is so much content now, that I have been listening to, not just, it's not just, Abraham Hicks and these I mentioned. There's another one which talks about the whole, if you look at it, all of the religions, most of the religions have been talking about this stuff, but not in a scientific term, right? Understanding this, we go back to some of those, sort of stories, or, the old wise tales, or some of those, and you're like, wait, there was some, like, method, there was some reason that those things were, but as we know, there's a lot of history that has gone, missing. I won't get into the details of that, but it is through, like, learning. I listen to, and these doctors and these physicists and these chemists and these, there's a whole, now the neurology, like, neuroplasticity, sorry, the ability to change our brain. It's there's so much information there that we need to learn. We need to ask the questions, because I think the reason I feel so steadfast in my belief now, that I choose to believe that anything that happens, it really comes down to our belief, after, Carla, that, the laws will go into work. The law of attraction can only go into work when we become absolute in our belief and can create that feeling. So, but you see, that understanding has happened over, it's an evolution for me of almost 10 years, where, the first time it was The Secret, I still didn't sink in properly. Then a good friend of mine, Wayne, who I just met, he sent me an Abraham Hicks video. And I was walking outside with my earphones on, and I think that day something happened. That was another day where I completely feel like something inside of me changed after listening to that video. It was like setting your vibrational tone was that. Now, a number of years later, after listening to lots of other people, then, I heard another Abraham Hicks one. It was like the Light Worker's Guide, right? I think that's what it's called, the Light Worker's Guide. And when I heard that, I was literally walking at we were on a business conference, walking on a train platform. I had my earphones on, and this thing came on, and I literally stopped. Because you know what they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. We could listen, some of the people that I'm listening to now, I couldn't absorb them when I first started on this journey. And I will just, this is not just now hokey pokey stuff. This is peer-reviewed science and medical journals that is talking about the quantum field, that is talking about the quantum theory, and how, we basically can, create whatever we want by, the thought, right? Like what sets us apart from all other animal life is the fact that we have the power to think and the power to control our thought. And really that's kind of where it all starts. Once we become aware of just us and our existence and the fact that there may be something out there, well, then I believe we start on a journey of self-discovery. And when then it doesn't feel like work. It's inspired action. Would you believe, Carla, like I usually have hours and hours of work to do, right, with being in accounting and all that. But as I am working, like I've always got something on that I'm listening to until I need to focus, and I got to turn it off for a few minutes. I say, okay, focus time, right? So it's and once we get to this stage, it's not like our belief goes away, or it's not like things don't impact us. But when we understand how we create, then when the negatives do happen, when the doubt does start to come in, or we're all human, this doesn't mean we can't experience jealousy, but when we come back to our belief in the perfection of the physical laws which he has created. But here's the thing, the right hand that I talked about, all those qualities, right? Well, if we think about it, isn't that really, I say, if we were all going after our dreams, and we know we have to come from this sort of energy field, and there's no room for this negative energy, isn't that the vibration of humanity?
Yeah, I mean, look at the world today. There's so much confusion because we're all vibrating at different frequencies.
Oh, bless you. God bless you.
It's amazing. It's really, really very interesting.
Well, I think a lot of people will say, like in the business world, right? A lot of people say this super elite, parasitical elite class, who control the, like 99% of the wealth, the 1% of the population that controls 99% of the wealth, that they know this information, that they know about the law of attraction, and that they use it. They don't want us to know, and that they use it to sort of, gain control over the world. But I completely believe that there is missing information, because I believe they're in their understanding, because if they truly believed and truly understood these laws, that we can actually create whatever we want. If we could create whatever we want, that creation could be something, a pair of shoes. It could be a huge successful business, a car. There's no limit to that creation, because what do we need to do? We just need to, sort of replicate that feeling of abundance and gratitude and relief, right? So we can create whatever we want. So I really believe that, I don't think these guys get it. I think they've missed it, because if they truly believe that we could create whatever we want through these laws, then why do we need to have kill for oil? Why do we need to, have these conflicts around the world where we're literally killing millions of people? Because I believe there's missing information. And can we enlighten them? There are enough people talking about this. And, can I just share a fact with you?
Sure.
They say that, uh, like it takes, if you take the population of an area, right, and you take 1% of that population and then take the square root of that population, that is the number of people that you need to have at this frequency or this new frequency to actually cause an energetic shift. Okay. So if we talk about the 7 billion people in the world, then that 1% in the square root of that only works out to 8,000 people. Okay. So if it would only take 8,000 people to create this energetic shift, why hasn't it happened yet? Because a lot of these big gurus, when I talk about Dr. Joe, Tony Robbins, all of these guys, like they have almost that many in their conferences, because really the reality is because I believe there's like missing information. People, it is a self-discovery journey. We can do this, but how are we going to, and I think that's where my role comes in. So it's kind of odd hearing an accountant talk about all of this, right? So, we talk about like the super apps of Uber and, all of these like Amazon and all of these things, right? So, like with these, wealth is getting further and further consolidated in fewer and fewer hands, especially with the e-commerce and everything boom now, right? But you know what? What if we could create these super apps for the people, right? What if like governments and, sort of their sovereign funds could create these super apps, for the people, like to move to this new world, we actually need, we need new business models. We need new, taxation models. We need new wealth distribution models. We need, there's, so I really hope that, sort of what my goal is how do we bring, this information where we can create what we want, but really we have to come from a place of humanity, We can create what we want. Can decisions in the boardrooms be driven by not just the profit line? I'm working on a project called the ROH framework, Return on Humanity framework, which is supposed to be a complementary framework to ROI, which is ROI, which is return on investment. So that to determine like the success of business or the value of business, we will no longer just look at ROI. We will also look at ROH, the return on humanity, to say how, it's going to be a global wellness target made up of prioritized projects, like in all different elements of our life. How do we, we will be, how does this company not just look at their bottom line, but they also look at how they're contributing to making the world a better place where we can get everybody to a place where everybody is living at a level of dignity and, community and peace. And it's not acceptable that we have starving people in the world. It's not acceptable that people don't have running water or basic health care. These are not acceptable. There's more than enough money to go around. It's just nobody's working towards, a target with a plan. And it's not about, I wrote something called Bridging Facts. So FACTS, facts, science, spirituality, and who we are. And the answers don't lie in any one of those things. It really is about bringing this together and kind of saying, how do we move to a better world for all of us? Because this is not what the Great One intended.
I agree.
Right? You're doing great work yourself, Carla. I saw your thing, which was like the CEO of what, Giggle Fest. Well, being happy, being content and happy, and really that is that frequency, that is that vibrational frequency of joy, love, gratitude. When can you truly be happy? When you're satisfied in gratitude. And the whole thing about, they say the emotional signature of everything that we want is gratitude, because when we can be in gratitude before we have what we want, then everything, the law of attraction will go to work, the law of vibration will go to work to bring us what we want in the quickest possible way. But we've got to get ourselves here where we truly are at peace. We are, belief in it. It's belief in the law, in these laws, which I believe there's enough science to prove that the laws work. Gravity works, light works, sound works, right?
I would like, I don't want to end this now, but we've been talking for about 40 minutes. Yeah, you're amazing.
Thank you.
I would like to continue this maybe on another day if you're willing,
Absolutely.
and do a series on this and what is the law of attraction and help people understand. Would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely. I would love to. We've got to share this information because, and, help people believe that for each one of us, we have equal possibility to create what we want, but we just got to get ourselves here, understand it, understand the science. So absolutely, Carla, I'd be delighted.
Thank you so very much. Do you want to leave our audience with a few nuggets?
I would just say that we've got to start dreaming. We've got to start dreaming and don't let those possibilities, like there should be no boundaries to our dreams and, to the visions that we want to create, because once we figure this out, then, can I just say something? There's 60, Abraham Hicks talks about this as 67 seconds of pure thought. Okay, that what would take lifetimes to do, we could literally get it done in seconds, because we are now accessing, it's not a supernatural, it's the energy that's created this world. We know there's a higher being, whether I'm, my religion, your religion, 10 other religions, it doesn't matter. They all talk, we are magnificent beings, technology, we are soft technology. There's something making the 53 trillion cells in our body working in perfect harmony. That once we know how to access this energy and this, power, we can all create whatever we want. So absolutely. So dream your biggest dreams, and all you have to do is then believe that it's going to happen, and, live in that state, which is not easy because, crap hits us all the time. But, when we know the science, we come back to that it is possible.
And I think we should keep the quote by Disney, and I know I'm paraphrasing it. If you can imagine it, you can get it. And there's no reason why we can't do that.
And that's just, what the mind of man can conceive, believe it can achieve. There's one thing in there that we need to infuse, the belief. There's a whole energy field around that belief. And that's what the energy field that we got to get people to start to experience. And then once we can do that, absolutely.
Well, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll figure this out, but I think we need to do that.
Love it. Love to.
And having said that, I also want to thank the Institute of Peace for promoting peace with one conversation at a time. Can we wave goodbye? Bye, everyone. We will be back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.